The first one, death penalty. Parliament has abolished the death penalty. God has advocated the punishment of death for certain crimes. So this one goes to Satan. In regards to the death penalty, God tells us that life is so sacred, so sacred, that no one should ever take the life of anybody else. And if somebody does take the life of anybody else, he loses the right to his own life. But this has been distorted now, so that we are told that life is so sacred that a person who kills another person should not be killed. So one would imagine that in such a scenario, abortion would never be permitted because it's taking the life. But what happens? In the case of abortion, it has been legalized. So here we have another success for Satan. What about homosexuality? God has expressed in the strongest terms that it is not an acceptable way of conducting oneself. God gives us various rules, and this is one of them. We have been warned that Satan will corrupt us through various means, and this is one of the ways by which Satan is destroying mankind. People use the argument that there is evidence, a genetic evidence, for a homosexual tendency, and use that as justifying promoting that activity. It is the same with all the distortion of normality. This is an untrue argument. We have the same situation in the human body where we have a genetic explanation for diabetes, a genetic predisposition to arthritis, a genetic predisposition to inflammatory bowel disease. This does not mean that because there is a genetic link that has been identified that we now accept this as normal and acceptable and that we no longer treat diabetes or arthritis. It simply tells us that we understand why this person has this malady. So when we identify a genetic link, we identify why this person has this disease, and we must do everything we can to help this person. So here is another tick for Satan. Homosexuality has been acknowledged and recognized in terms of the law. What about taxes? God has never imposed arbitrary taxes on people and has imposed a tax which is a portion of one's accumulated wealth, which means that after you have paid all your expenses for the year, if by God's grace you have been able to accumulate some wealth, a small portion of that should be given in charity. And God never places one man in a superior position to another man to the extent that he is now going to come and inspect your life and to see whether you are justified in the amount of tax you are paying. This is your bond with God. This is your commitment to God, that you would do it honestly and truthfully, and God is your witness. And as a result of this, you make your calculations, you pay it, God is your witness, and God is the one who will hold you accountable. We have a system of taxes. Here's another one for Satan. What's the possibility that we're going to keep getting everything coming up to Satan as a random selection? Surely you can see that this randomness is no longer applying. We are dealing with a system that is designed to promote a particular way. Is that all? Is that all the evidence I have? Let's go further. What happens in the case of extrajudicial murder? God forbids it. Our governments, many governments, are doing it, and we have evidence of certain governments doing it and proclaiming it openly, where they state that they will kill certain people without bringing them to trial, without giving them a chance to defend themselves. That's 5 out of 5 for Satan. Adultery. God has commanded that adultery is unacceptable. It is a violation of a law. God's law is clear on this. Adultery is no longer a crime in terms of our law. pornography has now been accepted and is available legally. Counterfeiting, taking things and making something which is false and presenting it as something different. That is lying. That is cheating. God forbids it. Our governments have introduced a system of a central government being allowed to create money out of fresh air, in effect counterfeiting wealth. Another one, to Satan. The theft of food as being a crime. God does not ask us to punish in the same way an individual who is guilty of stealing a small morsel of food. In fact, we would let that person go away. Why? Because we should not have in our society a situation that will arise where a person should need to steal a morsel of food. If that person is doing it, the fault is our own, not that person who's stealing. So in terms of the laws given by God, that person would not be punished. But in terms of our law, even if you steal a crumb of bread that belongs to somebody else, you have committed a crime. In the same way, a person urinating in public is a crime. But in the same way, that crime is ours, because we are supposed to make sure that everybody has the means of relieving themselves. And if we haven't made provisions, that person needs to go, he needs to go. He has not committed a crime. Another one, to Satan. Privacy within our homes. God commands us in the true sense of ownership that you have full rights within your home and no one has the right to enter without your permission. Today that has been taken away, as we have explained previously. Divorce. In the eyes of God, divorce is the most horrendous thing that He has made permissible. And we are asked to reject it as far as possible. Our laws make the finalization of divorce the easiest thing possible. Interest. God has forbidden interest. The person who charges interest, the person who pays interest, the person who records a transaction in which interest is taking place are all acting illegitimately, are all violating God's laws. Licensing the use of private assets. If we own something, we need nobody's permission to use it. Today we need licenses. This goes on. Parliament itself being given the power to make laws in total violation of God's laws. So far I have gone through 17 different laws covering various aspects of our life. And in every single case, 100% of the cases, these laws are promoting a way of life that rejects the laws of God. This is proof to us that everything that God has told us is correct. That this body that has been set up to promote a satanic agenda, and the laws that are coming out of that are satanically inclined. And when Satan achieves his objective of creating a single world government with a single parliament, we would all become monotheists, worshipping Satan alone, and his pledge to subject us to him would have been fulfilled. I leave you to meditate and ponder on that. When we come back, we shall now take a break, and God willing, when we do return, we shall be now going into the next phase of this presentation. I have given you all the bad news. Now, where is the light at the end of this tunnel? How can we start? What can we do in order to get out of the situation that we are in right now, regain our liberty and freedom, regain our freedom from death, regain the purity of our churches, regain our law as the means of protecting us and helping us enforce our rights? We shall start with this when we come back, God willing. Peace be upon you.
أشهد أن لا إله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد